Hey up viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to So You're Being Hunted, episode 485 now, I do believe. So, back here with another podcast style episode. I know, sort of at the end of the last episode, I was kind of hinting that maybe I would start off another challenge, but I don't know, it's a Saturday afternoon as I record this, it's 2 o'clock, and I've been hoping to basically sit down, do some recording, and I don't know, I just couldn't really be arsed starting another challenge, so fuck it. We're just going to continue on with this map. Oh, shit, didn't mean to do that. I meant to actually do that. I nearly just jump scared myself, good lord. Yeah, that completely distracted my entire train of thought, what the hell. I was saying, though, I'm just going to do another podcast-style episode today, which is fine, because, as always, whenever I get kind of like a topic on my brain, I always have to talk about it, and, indeed, there is one right now that's, on me old head, or at least, something like, say, that's on my brain and that I kind of want to talk about. Because, I've been, watching some... Well, recently I was watching a series here on YouTube, a Let's Play, sort of Let's Play I should say, not like a full Let's Play, but a mini Let's Play, let's put it that way, of a game that I played when I was a kid. Now, of course, I've probably talked about the Rayman series before, in my So You're Being Hunted podcast-style episodes. So for anyone who doesn't know, of course, Rayman is an old favourite of mine. Rayman 3 in particular was one of my favourite 3D platformers I've ever played, and probably my favourite Rayman game that I've ever played. But, I've played a few Rayman games, I've done a bit of Origins here on the channel, though I have played that, I think, in full, before I started my channel. And, apart from that, obviously I've played Rayman 2, Rayman 3, trying to think if there's any others I've played. Well, there is one, which I'm going to mention in a second. So the topic, of this video today, which I wanted to talk about, was a Rayman game that came out, I think, in about 2001, and it's one that's kind of been, I'd say, forgotten to some extent. Thing is, it's one of those games which, if you search for it on sites like GOG or Steam, you will not find it. I think the only way really to play it these days is if you buy a second-hand copy of it, and that game is Rayman M, or as it was known, I believe, in North America, Rayman Arena. Though, admittedly, the two games are actually kind of different. Rayman M and Rayman Arena, they're sort of their own things, even though they are supposed to be kind of the same game. But Rayman M, like I say, I think it came out in 2001, and I remember playing it when I was a lot younger, in my sort of teenage years. And the thing about it was very different to most Rayman games at the time, because obviously Rayman games traditionally are all platformers. Platforming adventure games. Rayman M, on the other hand, was the first sort of Rayman game to have a kind of multiplayer to it. Though when I say multiplayer, I think it was basically people in the same room, that kind of multiplayer. Unless I'm mistaken. Admittedly, it's been quite a few years since I last played it. But in essence, Rayman M was a mixture of racing and arena-style fighting, and you could sort of pick which character you played as, and it basically had a small cast of characters taken from Rayman 2. So obviously, apart from Rayman, you also had Glowbox, you had the Teensies, and you also had Razorbeard and a Henchman 800 that you could play as. Though, interestingly, Rayman M also introduced 3 sort of original characters, who again are sort of loosely based on Rayman 2 characters. So it was like a Henchman 1000, there was Razorwife, there was Tylee. But, so in essence it was more like a compilation of little sort of racing and fighting games, rather than sort of like a true traditional Rayman platformer. But it's one of those games which I hadn't thought about for several years, really, until suddenly it came into my head again. I thought, do you remember Rayman M? Do you remember that one? So I thought about it again, and I searched for it on YouTube, Rayman M Let's Play, to see if anyone had done it. And there weren't any channels that had done it which I was familiar with, but there was one interesting one. I think the channel was called Mr. Wooden Sheep, something like that, who, when I actually looked over their playlists, I actually found that they've done an absolute ton of stuff related to Rayman, including other Rayman games that I've played before. But in essence, this channel, Mr. Wooden Sheep, had done sort of like a mini Let's Play, not just of Rayman M, but also of all the different Rayman M variants, because there's technically sort of 3 variations of Rayman M. There's the original Rayman M itself, which I think was for PlayStation and PC. There was then like a small version called Rayman Rush, which I'm guessing was made for certain consoles. And then there was, like I say, the North American version, which was Rayman Arena. And what was interesting watching this sort of mini Let's Play thing was seeing the differences between each of these ports of the game. So Rayman, the original Rayman M, of course, had a whole load of very interesting maps and characters that you could play as, some of whom had different sort of skins that you could unlock. And the thing about it was that graphically it was very much Rayman 2 style graphics, but with some slight improvement to them. Then, of course, you get Rayman Rush, which I don't know what console that was made for. It was probably made for something, I don't know, like, I have no idea. It was probably made for like handheld consoles, handheld portable consoles or something. But it's like the graphics in that one are just comparatively not as good. And the thing about it was, watching this video, this video on it by Mr. Wooden Sheep, it occurred to me that compared to Rayman M, it was really lacking, and it just looked like it was a bit buggy. And then, of course, you got Rayman Arena, the North American version, which had some unique tracks and maps to it, as well as obviously the inclusion of another character that Rayman M didn't have, Dark Glowbox, which is all very curious. It's interesting to see, how the same game can be taken and sort of changed up between different versions, essentially. How different versions of what is essentially the same game can have new content or can be radically different to the actual OG version. I think it's, that just makes me think of other games out there which I've played and where I've looked at the console version, whether through like YouTube videos or whatever, or game trailers, and I've noticed how different other sort of versions of the game are to the one that I've played or seen. So like other examples that I can talk about here, I mean RTCW, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, is a big case in point. So obviously I grew up with a PC version of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, but of course Return to Castle Wolfenstein at the time was also released on PlayStation and Xbox, and the PlayStation and Xbox versions of the game are similar for the most part, but of course if you've played those you'll know that the console versions actually include a extra mission that the PC version doesn't include, a mission set in Egypt. Of course, in the RTCW community, I think it's always been a bit of a thing about, wouldn't it be amazing if someone was able to port the North Africa mission from the console versions of RTCW and release it as a custom map for default PC Return to Castle Wolfenstein? So that's another example there that I can think of off the top of my head. The other example, actually, that I can think of is Lego Rock Raiders from the sort of late 90s. So, Lego Rock Raiders was one of the few sort of Lego games that I played as a kid. And I played it on the PC, where it was, very much kind of like an RTS style sort of game, resource management kind of game. But now I've talked in the past here on So You're Being Hunted about a channel that I once watched, Kadikarus, who does a lot of kind of like nostalgic videos looking at old school gaming content, gaming publications, things like that. And he, did a video on the world of Lego games, and he talked about Rock Raiders in there, and apparently he played the old PlayStation version of Rock Raiders. And it's interesting because watching his video on Lego games, the old PlayStation version of Rock Raiders looks nothing, or rather it functions in a completely different way to the PC version of the game, to the point where it's almost like they are completely different games. And it's interesting to think about what kind of decisions in the production process led to the creation of a console port that was just utterly different to anything else. And that is a subject that I do kind of find fascinating myself. Oh, careful. Christ, I cannot hit that guy, good lord. Oh, I'm out of here. I'm just going to leave you guys. Oof, dearie me. Evidently they must be PlayStation Lego Rock Raiders fans who don't like me talking about it because they probably know what I'm about to say, because what I'm about to say is that the PlayStation version of Lego Rock Raiders looks absolutely shit, from what little I saw of it anyway. So yes, those are two other examples, but Rayman M, Rayman Rush, Rayman Arena, that all just got me thinking about that. And I guess, there's probably reasons for that in terms of the hardware and, the type of console that you're creating the game for. Probably there are certain limitations on each type of console that have to be taken into account. Maybe whether that's things like disk space or whatever. So as a result, that results to changes in things like graphics. So then, or graphics, changes in graphics, number of maps and levels, number of characters you can play as, number of different mechanics in the game, this sort of thing, just to ensure it saves disk space and all that. Because the thing is, my technical knowledge of console gaming is pretty limited, I will admit. Because the thing about me is, when I was a kid, the only console I ever had was a PC. That was it. I'm very much a PC master race kind of person. I never had any video game consoles of my own. So I never really had any experience playing on anything other than PC. And the thing about PC is, of course, that I think generally that has more disk space on it. So you can put more into a game, whereas consoles, it's certainly I think back in the day it was a bit more limited. Then again, I could be talking out of my arse entirely, and if I am, I'm sure people in the comments will let me know. In which case, fine, do let me know then. Yes, indeed. Right. What was I going to say though? I was going to say, it's a shame that Rayman M hasn't been kind of updated and brought onto modern distribution platforms like Steam or GOG. At least, as far as I'm aware, they're not on there. But like I say, it's really unfortunate that, because it's a game that I probably would actually love to play again. Though I'm kind of curious now, maybe, I don't know. Because I do have an old disc copy of it, but I think it's probably stuck in my family's attic back up north. So I'll probably have to dig it out next time I'm up there, try and find it. And truth is, I don't know if it would even work on sort of these, on my current PC build. But yeah, maybe it's worth a try, you never know, right? So yeah, like I say, it was an interesting game. I mean, it wasn't a traditional Rayman game, but it was fun for what it was, with its racetracks and its little battle arenas, things like that. It did have some weird game modes in it, the Rayman M, now that I think about it. Especially on, like, the racetracks, because you'd have, like, a conventional race between yourself and other characters, or other players if you're playing it multiplayer. But, after the races, there would always be sort of strange modes of, like, going shooting butterflies and all kinds of weird stuff. It's very strange. But the battle modes were always quite fun. So you had, like, traditional kind of battle royale type matches, just you versus everyone, picking up weapons and fighting your adversaries. But then it had like capture the fly, which is basically like capture the flag essentially, as well as other ones where you'd have to collect items before your opponents do. So that was always fun. What was interesting though, actually, now that I think about it, about Rayman M, in Rayman M PC version, one of the final maps that you play in that game was called Spooky Towers. It was an arena map, and what was weird about that one was how I always remember it as a kid. It was a super difficult map, and what I recently discovered, again from watching videos online, is that it was definitely extremely difficult because for some reason the devs actually for that map tweaked the AI of the opposing characters to make them extremely OP so that they move slightly faster than your player character does. And it's like, wow, no wonder I remember it as being really difficult, because it sounds like it was just deliberately designed to be an absolute ball ache. But yeah, it was interesting to find that out. Interesting design choice as well. But let me know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen, any of you guys out there who played Rayman M when you were younger? I'd be curious to know. And I'd also be curious to actually clarify, did Rayman M actually have online multiplayer? Or was it, like I say, was it that kind of old school multiplayer where your players would have to be sat in the same room in order to play with one another? Whether that's sharing a keyboard, or, hooking up more than one keyboard or controller to your computer. I honestly don't really remember. Because, of course, I was always a single-player kind of guy. I didn't have any friends who played Rayman M. So, unfortunately, I never actually experienced Rayman M in multiplayer. I always just played against bot-controlled enemies and whatever else have you. You know, thinking though about the original characters that Rayman M actually did add to the Rayman franchise, makes me kind of think about the Rayman games, the old school Rayman games as a whole. It makes me kind of want something. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a remake of Rayman 2 with much more modern graphics, but with the combat mechanics of Rayman 3 and maybe the inclusion of certain characters from Rayman M. Wouldn't that just be quite something pretty good, ladies and gentlemen? I think that would certainly make for something quite interesting. But you know, we all have things we want to see, that we'd love to see in gaming and all that. Don't we, ladies and gentlemen? Where's the door? I'm trying to find the door. I've gone past it. There it is. Ah, map of the islands. Lovely. I'm out. See ya. Okay, there we go. Alright, well, you know what, I think I've rambled on enough there about Rayman M, old chaps and chapesses. So tell you what we'll do, I think we'll wrap this podcast-style episode up here. You know, I was thinking, you know, could I end on sort of like a punchline there, or a particularly profound note? But no, we're not going to. Oh, dearie me. We're not going to do that at all, ladies and gentlemen, because I can't be arsed. Plus it's reached, you know what, I think I've been going for about 15 minutes, which is probably long enough anyway. So yeah, Facebook and Twitter links down below, ladies and gentlemen, along with a link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. If you enjoyed, I like to always appreciate and all that jazz. But like I say, let me know in the comments, any Rayman M players out there who remember that game. And, you know, did I just trigger a little bit of a nostalgia rush in you? If so, let me know in the comments. But than that, I'm going to go. Goodbye, all. We're doing rings now, so yeah, let's try the rings first and just see. Because I think the path I take, I do the rings, then it gets me to the chests. Once you do the chests, the gates are not too far from there. This one, very close to the water just there. Yeah. Okay.
That one. What's that one? The gates. The gates are quite high.
Ah, yeah. Okay, that one.
That one can go up to there. That's there, yeah.
Okay. So the lighthouse appears to be very much in the middle of the island, so I'm trying to remember that.
They're very distinctive.